At a time when the world is becoming increasingly interlinked with technology, connectivity is the buzzword. Recognizing that this would throw up many opportunities for the future, Bobby Sarin started Ozone Networks, which today is India's leading public Wi-Fi service provider. So how did the company actually start out?
I've been in telecoms now nearly 27 years globally, lived in 6 different countries. Coming from a very large corporate job of the global president for British Telecom, I had had enough of basically, making money for the big giants, and I wanted to really explore running a company myself. So went through a transition, came to India mainly because I knew the environment, because I used to come here every year with my parents, and I met the DLF senior executives and said, I want to put Wi-Fi in all of your buildings, because I knew they were one of the largest construction players in the country. And they said, let's do it. So very, very shortly after coming to India, we had a contract with DLF to roll out Wi-Fi across all the Cyber City buildings in the public areas. And very shortly after that, I went back to the UK to raise money. We talked to one investor and we raised money literally in 2 weeks. A significant money off a business plan, and came back to India to start the entrepreneurial journey. That's how it started.
Bobby Sarin is a veteran in the telecom space, having held key leadership positions in companies like British Telecom and the Cloud. With his experience, he has been trying to replicate these successes in India as well. But he has been up against a host of challenges here.
I think the challenges we had was, I think hiring the right people was one of the biggest challenges, because a lot of the CVs were overinflated. So it's really, filtering out the right people was very, very key to the type of culture I wanted to create within the business. The second thing was actually working with the large operators. Trying to get broadband to the locations was very, very difficult, because apart from Airtel, BSNL, and MTNL, none of the other players were delivering a lot of broadband. So that took a lot of time. Getting approvals, getting right-of-way permissions cleared to the locations, etc., just took a long time. And I think the third thing was managing the customer. Because it was very strange for me to start working with customers in India, where the customers were more interested in what we were getting out of the deal rather than what they were going to get out of the deal. Yeah, because I was coming along with a proposition that Ozone would do the entire investment, and any money we make, we would share the revenues with you. But even that was initially a bit of a struggle on how to convince them that this was a very good proposition for them in general. Yeah, like DLF, first sort of city area, lighting up broadband for all of the people within Cyber City was a very good marketing spin. But that took a bit of pain to go through to convince the management that it was very good for them. But once we got there and we started to roll, life became a lot easier. So they were our challenges mainly, is finding the right people, getting broadband to the places, and convincing the customer that it was good for them.
Today, Ozone's operations span across public domains in hospitality, restaurants and airports, and going forward, they are looking to go deeper into India by tapping into the vast network of railways across the country.
Big focus going forward is to get into railways. So we've got the go-ahead to put Wi-Fi and speed fetch on the Maharaja train as a test, which we believe is going to be very, very successful. Actually, my ideal vision is to get 300 railway stations all over the country. I think it's a big opportunity. Millions and millions of passengers travel every day. One of the big things lacking on the trains in India today You get your food, you get your bedding, you get your seat, but there's no entertainment. Yeah. So just imagine the proposition where you can connect to a Wi-Fi SSID, and you have an option of 1,000 movies to download and watch something on a 16-hour train journey. That's going to be a significant motivation for people to travel on trains. So I think that's where, that is the area we're catering for, because we're not just a Wi-Fi business anymore. I'm sort of redefining Ozone as the entertainment of broadband, for the masses. And that's the journey where we are actually embarking on, and we're aggressively going after.
In the near future, companies like Ozone could play a big role in bridging the connectivity gap between rapidly progressing urban cities and the large unconnected masses in rural India. And this opportunity is one of the reasons it caught the attention of a global telecom player trying to make inroads into the Indian market. More on that when we return. Over the years, as India and its cities developed fast, technology grew by leaps and bounds. This is reflected in the sheer numbers of smartphone users in India today, which is expected to increase exponentially. All these elements throw up big opportunities for companies like New Call Telecom, a UK-based telecom and data network company that recently acquired Ozone. So what was the rationale behind this acquisition?
What really attracted us about Ozone was Ozone came into India back in the days when Wi-Fi wasn't very prevalent, and actually built a business case from ground zero in a market that probably wasn't just right for that type of business. And they did fantastically well despite the underlying market conditions to become the largest pan-India public realm Wi-Fi hotspot provider. And that's a tremendous achievement to have delivered in such a interesting time in the market. The market now is completely at an inflection point where consumer demand is tremendous for connecting to the Internet of Things. E-commerce is driving massive demand for further connectivity in all different realms. But as we know, there may be 700 million to maybe 800 million consumers in India that will find it very difficult to afford to connect to the internet in any regular way. So and when I mean regular way, I mean using 3G, 4G and fixed line broadband. But what's happening really within Wi-Fi right across the world, it's opening up access to the digitally deprived, let's call it. It's sort of reaching across that connectivity gap. And I think Wi-Fi is a very, very important connectivity media for India.
While New Call is reaching deeper into India through this acquisition, Ozone is trying to expand its network through partnerships with companies like SpeedFetch, an offline download app, and the most recent tie-up with Ericsson.
We tied up with a very unique proposition with Ericsson's, which they have not done with any other Wi-Fi operator in the world. This is the first time. That basically what we're doing is we are jointly going to invest in the rollouts of the capital expenditure in Ozone's network. They are going to support us to build the network and operate the network, and the plans are to go to 1 million hotspots, jointly together by the year 2020. So it's a significant partnership because they, one of the big pluses for Ozone is they have 5,000 engineers on the road in India. So I don't have to build a nationwide team anymore. I can just ride on the back of their infrastructure and their people. Because Ericsson's have also realized that data is exploding in India. And we've seen that in the last few months. We've had a 700% growth in data traffic. So Ericsson's have realized that, should we compete for a small margin between one Wi-Fi vendor and another Wi-Fi vendor, Or should we make money through the data growth that is going to happen in the market? Yeah, where you can make 1,000 times return on a single box, or a single Wi-Fi box. So they've also been very smart as business people to realize that let's ride the wave of data growth rather than just making a small margin on selling a box. And I think all the vendors are going to go in that direction. It's more important to build a neutral network for everybody to use rather than build standalone networks where there's no sharing going on. I think one point also to mention that Ozone's unique proposition in India is we are building a neutral Wi-Fi network. So it's like the companies that are building cellular towers. So today, no operator has their own towers. They've all sold that off to standalone companies. Wi-Fi, the network we're building in India, is going to be following the same proposition. So it's going to be a neutral hotspot in all these public locations. And then we will go to the operators like Airtel, Reliance, and we will allow them to sell our network to their consumers under their own brand. So we're the only ones building a neutral network in India. Everybody else is trying to build standalone networks, which I think is going back in time. Yeah, because when the mobile operators started in India, everybody built their own standalone networks. Then they realized, why are we building networks? There's no value owning a tower. Yeah, because when you connect and you make a mobile call, a phone call, you don't know whose tower you're connecting to. Yeah, do you care? You don't care at all. The same thing is going to be for data, in Wi-Fi locations. You don't care whether it's an Ozone hotspot or an Airtel hotspot or anything. And that's the way it should be. Then we can grow fast. Otherwise India is going to slow down because we're going to be competing on locations. And that should not be the case. Yeah. So that's why Ericsson's have backed us versus any other operator in India, because we're building a neutral network. And we're going to partner with everybody going forward.
While these partnerships will give Ozone the agility to grow fast, to overcome challenges on ground and ensure that this growth is sustainable, companies like Ozone will also need support from the government in some crucial aspects.
Part of what we're looking for government to do is to really drive through the infrastructure rollout of the national fibre optic network. That's key. Creating that fibre backbone right across India that creates the backhaul, the route for data to travel through and voice to travel through is very, very key to the success of the Digital India initiative. So we're very focused and acutely sort of watching the way that rolls out. So, Digital India, National Fibre Optic Network are two things that go hand in glove. So we watch that, and we as a business are agnostic when it comes to connectivity providers. So the types of backhaul that we would use, we use all different network providers here in India, which for us sort of mitigates any reliance or over-dependency on one particular network provider. But all of those incumbents here in India are actively looking to get this national fibre optic network strategy in place and rolled out. So for us, we just piggyback their connectivity.
Given these challenges, India is a difficult market to operate in. But despite the obstacles, why does India continue to be so attractive to global companies across sectors? Find out when we return. Telecom market has seen a host of domestic and international players enter the fray over the last 2 decades. This holds true even for mobile handset makers, with companies launching new and innovative smartphones every few days. But according to Bobby Sarin, the founder of Ozone, there is a basic mismatch in this space.
Using the analogy of cars and highways, there's a lot of handsets and cars in the market now, yeah? The thing lacking is the highways and the broadband, okay? But we have seen wherever we've rolled out a hotspot, within a period of 5 to 6 months, we are maximizing traffic in the locations. So the message I'm giving you is the demand is in the market. People want to use it. Our highest performing location is McDonald's in Ahmedabad, for example, or Ambala. Yeah, you would not have thought. You would have thought CP, Connaught Place, McDonald's would have been our high usage locations. It's not. So there's we're seeing, like I said, a significant growth in traffic. 2 years ago actually, our average user session was 10 minutes and 12 megabits of capacity was being utilized. Today, the average user session is around 43 minutes and 45 megabits of data is being utilized. And some locations, gigabits of traffic are being utilized. So the demand is humongous. You can see that also by a lot of the mobile networks are deteriorating. Yeah, trying to connect in Delhi now is a big struggle. And the reason why it's a big struggle is because the networks are congested. The 3G networks are congested. There's only 5 megahertz of spectrum for a population of 1.3 billion people. Yeah, in the US, there's 100 plus 100 megahertz of spectrum for a much smaller population. So humongous growth. You see it with the mobile operators on 3G. Gopal Vittal is announcing record profits and all of that. And that's down to, data. It's not down to voice anymore. Yeah, voice used to be 95%, 99% of all mobile operators' revenues. Now voice is sitting at 60% or even less. So there's a big flip from voice revenues to data revenues, and there's a big explosion of data. The big thing lacking is just not enough connection points to connect to the internet. Even if there is connection points, the performance is bad.
While the government will need to address these issues fast for initiatives like Digital India to really kick off, Nigel Eastwood, CEO of Newcall Telecom, has a lot of expectations from the Indian market. So what sets this market apart from others?
When you look at the world and you look at where the large consumer demographic for internet are, there are only two major places right now that are really accelerating at rapid speed, and one is China and the second is India. China is more advanced in its adoption of infrastructure and the uptake of smartphones and connectivity to the internet, whereas India, with 1.2 billion people, is really just on the launch pad for connecting to the internet. Certainly when you look at sort of generically the connections in India right now to the internet, it's less than 1% of the population, whereas in China it's 13%. That's a huge rift, a huge gap that will be very, very quickly closed. So that accelerated growth and uptake is what I've been coming to India for over a decade. I've been watching develop over the last particularly 3-4 years. So that's why we're so focused on India. India and Indian consumers generally have the absolute innate ability to leapfrog technology. So right now, let's say in internet connectivity, India may be 3, 5, maybe in rural areas 10 years behind the West. But what we've seen in India is consumers and even infrastructure leapfrogging. So they've gone from no phone to smartphone. They've gone from no PC to a tablet. They've gone from no TV to IPTV, streaming video on demand. And that technology leap is what India, I believe, will do very, very quickly. So that 1% and 13% gap will probably be taken up very, very quickly. And I could well see, you know, the forecast right now are for 500 million people to be connected to the internet in some form or other in the next 5 years. I could see that being maybe 700 million in that period, because of the leapfrogging and the actual the huge drive and energy of the new government to really push the Digital India strategy.
Given the opportunities that are expected to come up here, what is Newcall's strategy for India? Are there more acquisitions on the cards?
We're looking at other key acquisitions that will complement and drive the growth of our strategy. Acquisitions in and around fixed line connectivity, acquisitions in and around data analytics companies, e-commerce companies, all of those that really dovetail together into this ecosystem that we've created. What we plan to do is, you know, deliver growth, and based on that growth, through our expertise in raising, you know, huge amounts of development capital through Ashmore and the Ashmore Group experience that Dr. Jerome Booth has had, what we plan to do is go out and replicate this model in other emerging markets.
While that is a larger plan for the parent company, what is the vision the founder of Ozone has for his company?
I think, you know, the whole focus and the drive of Ozone is, you know, the wish and the hope is going to be where we'll have 1 million hotspots rolled out in the country. We'll be one of the largest Wi-Fi player in the country. We see it being the center for entertainment for the large population of the country. I would ideally like anywhere between 300 to 500 million people touching our network a day. Even if they spend 5 rupees or 10 rupees, that's significant revenues for the business. And we brought India onto, you know, the #1 global scale. From being at the lowest level of broadband penetration and internet users, we've now skyrocketed to, you know, the leaders globally. And we have associations with all of the major operators in the country. We have associations with, I call it the over-the-top people, which is Facebook and Google and all of these guys. And I see, you know, Ozone being an extension of everybody's lives in India. Yeah, it's a route extension. You know, I want to stop here because it has Ozone or SpeedFetch. So that's where I see ourselves in 5 years. We see ourselves as dominating the space of Wi-Fi in India, in Asia, and the world.
Ozone will need to stay nimble and agile to adapt to the fast-changing landscape and stay ahead of competition, but it's got its big ambitions and seems to be headed in the right direction.